In addition to the news that the FCC would soon be voting to roll back net neutrality regulations, Google simultaneously announced that they would be taking a more censorship-oriented approach to internet search results. So in an article for the Boston Globe titled "Google Targets Fake News, Offensive Search Suggestions," they explain that Google has sprinkled some new ingredients into its search engine in an effort to prevent bogus information and offensive suggestions from souring its results. The changes have been in the works for 4 months, but Google hadn't publicly discussed most of them until now. The announcement in a blog post Tuesday reflects Google's confidence in a new screening system designed to reduce the chances that its influential search engine will highlight untrue stories about people and events, a phenomenon commonly referred to as fake news. Besides taking steps to block fake news from appearing in its search results, Google also has reprogrammed a popular feature that automatically tries to predict what a person is looking for as a search request is being typed. The tool, called autocomplete, has been overhauled to omit derogatory suggestions such as "Are women evil?" or recommendations that promote violence. Google is also adding a feedback option that will enable users to complain about objectionable autocomplete suggestions so a human can review the wording. Only about 0.25% of Google's search results were being polluted with falsehoods, but that was still enough to threaten the integrity of a search engine that processes billions of search requests per day, largely because it is widely regarded as the internet's most authoritative source of information. So this is incredibly troubling to me, and look, theoretically speaking, I think most of us are in favor of fake news going away, but we're not in favor of one company basically determining what is and isn't fake news. So if somebody mischaracterizes something or frames it in a way that the government doesn't like, would Google characterize that as fake news? And now, if a search result autocomplete, comes up that's harmful to a brand, a corporation, or a politician, Google is empowering themselves to censor it. Now, that is probably the least objectionable part of the story, but the other portion of it is that they will be doing their best to target, quote, offensive content. But what is and isn't offensive is entirely subjective. How do you determine what is and isn't offensive? Because something that is offensive to me is unoffensive to someone else, and vice versa. So how do you determine what is and isn't offensive? It's completely arbitrary, and Google is now saying that they're going to be the gatekeeper, and they're going to shield our eyes from anything that might be even mildly offensive. And we know that the definition of what's offensive to Google is pretty broad, because as of late on YouTube, now anything that's religious, anything that is related to news and politics is considered controversial and offensive. Hence why all of the independent news shows on YouTube are being demonetized, and we are making a fourth of what we made. So this is not good news. This is exactly a form of censorship, and it's something that makes Google an enemy of the truth. Now again, theoretically speaking, in a perfect world, we would all eliminate fake news. But I don't trust Google to determine what is and isn't fake news. So if I say something that might be considered as offensive. So if I say that Hillary Clinton is corrupt, it's true, but it's still offensive to Hillary Clinton's supporters. So are they going to censor the Humanist Report? Well, they're already trying to by defunding us on YouTube, but this is something that is it's brazenly an act of censorship. And look, this isn't a First Amendment issue because Google is not a democracy. They are a private company. But with that being said, I do think that ideals of our Constitution should be embodied in corporations that are so large that they actually play a role in democracy. I think Google is one of the few companies that plays a role in democracy. When we look for candidates and when we vote in elections, we do research on Google. We use Google as the main tool. So I think that Google needs to be transparent. They need to be open. They need to not censor anyone or anything. And what we should be doing is arming ourselves with knowledge on how to determine what is and isn't fake news. But you don't crack down on it with censorship. There's no legislative solution to this. It's just we have to be smarter, and we need to raise our standard of scrutiny and have better judgment when evaluating whether or not something is and isn't fake news. And spoiler alert, if it's fake news, you can tell pretty easily. So this is nothing but an excuse to censor content that they don't like. Google, I'm so irritated with Google lately, if you can't tell. Everything from the YouTube adpocalypse to censorship now, it's all just so frustrating. And if they continue to take advantage of consumers and their customers, the people who make them money, there's not going to be a Google left. Now, I'm not going to predict that Google will fall under, but what I am saying is that there's going to be a competitor that will rise up and take a huge portion of Google's profits. And you can best believe that the minute that happens, when there's a YouTube competitor, where, it has enough viewers and there's a way to monetize videos, we're there. Because YouTube is they've run their course. They're no longer a good company. They are one of the companies that is censoring us, that is trying to stifle independent media, and it's not okay. This segment of the Humanist Report is sponsored by Lunar Data Systems, who launched an Indiegogo campaign to fund production for the Pluto project, which is a computer monitor designed to ensure the utmost privacy through the use of glasses that allows only you to see what's on your computer monitor. And if you think this looks cool, which it does, they are offering these perks to supporters of the campaign. Support their Indiegogo campaign to fund the Pluto project by visiting the link down below.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.